Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to show you where I'm going to be building my new studio shed and show you the process of building the studio shed. Basically I've been here for about 2 years now in this house and I'm really short of space for filming, and I don't have anywhere to keep some of my tools either, so I need to build somewhere that will be a good filming environment. In the house it can be quite a lot of noise from the road, dogs barking, and so I need to get somewhere that's more controlled and somewhere that I can control the lighting better, and I should be able to make much better videos. So another challenge will be trying to soundproof it. You can probably hear today there's a lot of birds singing, there's also a lot of traffic noise. I live next to an RAF base where there's the fighter jets fly over quite regularly, so I need to drown out that noise. And then if there's any neighbours or enjoying their garden or any dogs barking, I need to try and prevent that noise from coming through into my studio. So I will be soundproofing it as best as I can within my budget. But the idea is it's going in this section here where the grass is. The section here that's currently just membrane used to be all grass. This will be all planted up as a tropical style garden, but I've just left it as a bare ground at the moment because this is where I'll need the space for building the shed, getting all the frames put together. I have also got a tropical style bed here, so I'll show you some photos from last summer. It's currently in its winter stage, so as you can see everything's wrapped up for winter, nothing's growing, there's not really much to see there. So despite being a year old, it's already quite well established, and this is quite a nice section of the garden. It should look nice and tropical within a few months. So I've got this big area at the back. Now I need to make the shed a decent size, so this is the site where it will be. It'll go about a metre away from the left wall there. Basically this section here I'm going to leave for compost. That's part of my compost at the back already, so this will be like a composting site at the back. These four canes actually are where the four corners of the shed will be, so you can see that's the kind of space I've got. It's probably about 2 metres actually I've got there, so that'll be a good composting site. I'll come along round about in line with this back fabric right up to this other cane over here. That will be the other corner. So we come quite close to the greenhouse. I'll then have a bamboo section at the back here, which I've just recently made a video about, and you can see it goes about a metre away from the back fence there. That's the other corner. So a decent sized shed, and should hopefully provide all I need for my filming on my YouTube channel. Now the only annoying thing is 90% of the spring bulbs in my garden just happen to be right in this section here, so I've actually got a time lapse going at the moment to film them opening. So it's a shame that I'm going to have to take out a lot of these bulbs. It's really the opposite time of year that you would normally do this. Normally you take the bulbs out when they're dormant or just after they've finished flowering. So it might be a bit difficult for me to save any of these bulbs. I'll do my best because I would like to keep some of these. They aren't my favourite crocuses. My favourite crocuses are the giant purple ones, and there are a few of them, not in this section, but you can see just down here. It hasn't opened yet, so it's not showing it its full glory, but that's more like the crocus I like. So although I might have to throw most of these bulbs away or try and save them, but they probably won't survive, I will be planting a lot more spring bulbs later on in the garden, and I'll make a few videos about that as well. But for now it looks like I'll have to just sacrifice all these bulbs because that's where the studio shed's going to go. So the first thing I need to do is I need to put a foundation down. So I'm going for a pretty basic foundation. I don't need anything too substantial. It's just going to be made out of wood, the shed. So what I'm going to do is there's loads of old slabs here. These are what are known as 3x2 slabs. These are just big slabs of concrete. They're about 5 or 6 centimeters thick in diameter, in thickness, and they're 2 foot by 3 foot, big solid slabs. What I'll do is I'll level this ground. I'll put the slabs down as a bit like a raft foundation, and then on top of each slab I'll put a dense concrete block, and then the foundations will go on top of that, and I'll show you that later on in the video. At the moment I'll just show you the general site, but I'll see you probably in a few weeks now when I'll be hopefully get the groundworks done, and I'll just be starting to get the framing sorted. So it's now several weeks later, and as you can see there's been quite a lot of progress on the studio shed. Now I would have liked to have documented it in more smaller stages to say every single step of the process, but I've been really rushing to try and get this done because once I started building the base of the floor I didn't really want it to get rained on, so I've just kind of rushed ahead and pushed ahead with my dad building this instead of documenting every stage. But this is where we are now. We've got the roof on and we've got a bit of a wall and a door. Now it does seem very strange the order I built it in. Normally you would build the walls for the roof, but there is a reason behind that. Basically I built the floor frame, and because of the way it is, it's very hard to get underneath it, and once you've got the actual framework in, you then can't get underneath, you can't lift it. So we had to still be able to lift it and do the floor. So what we did with the floor, we put this water vapor barrier to try and stop any moisture coming out from underneath, and then we've also put as you can see, some insulation in between the flooring joists. So because of that, I didn't want any rain to get on here, because if any rain gets in, this will fill with water and it'll take a long time for that to ever come out. So we basically had to do that before we put the walls up, so it wasn't too heavy. But then once the walls are up, I didn't want any rain getting on here. You can see, even though we did cover it with a roof, there has been rain getting in the sides just because wind blowing the rain in. So I will have to bail that out, but we've got this tarpaulin on the surface just to catch the worst of the rain. So that's why I had to push ahead and get the roof finished. And it has got the final metal cladding, although it's a little bit hard to see. I'll show you a photo from above so you can see what it looks like. But basically I need to make this as soundproof as possible so I can record videos without too much background noise. So the way I'm doing that is I'm having several different layers of sound insulation to try and stop the noise. So on the outside layer, there's that metal sheeting. This is the metal sheeting here. It's actually proved cheaper to use this instead of wood because the timber prices have gone up so much. But this is 0.5mm thick steel, plastic coated, I think it's a polyester paint. And so this has got a warranty, I think, for 10 or 20 years, but its expected lifetime is more like 50 years. So as long as it doesn't get scratched, basically, this will last a lifetime. So that's for the roof and also for the wall cladding. That doesn't provide a lot of sound protection, but it does help a bit with sound protection, but not massively. One of the main things after that layer, we have a layer of membrane, similar to the membrane on the floor down here. I'm going to seal it all up with tape as well. That will just help a bit with the air tightness of the structure. One way to stop sound is to make sure it's airtight, and that will certainly help with that. Then the next layer will be plywood, and we can see we have actually plied this wall already. So the plywood here is 9mm thick. I would have liked to go for thicker, but with the price of timber at the moment I had to go for a thinner layer. On the roof it's the same system, but it's 12mm plywood just for an extra bit of added strength, and it is a very nice strong roof now. So we got this here. That helps with the mass, that will help deaden the noise, but also because it's such big sections, it should also help a bit with the air tightness as well, but not massively. The main thing is it's a solid object with a lot of mass that will slow it down. Then on the inside, I've not done it yet, but we're going to have 9cm of acoustic rock wool. That should really help deaden a lot of the sound. But before the rock wool, you'll notice this green tape on all the joists. This is special acoustic tape. It's on also the roof joists as well. The idea is any vibrations from the sound that hits the plywood and the metal then gets deadened by this acoustic foam. It doesn't transfer through the joists, so this should really cut down on sound transmission. Then on this side, once the acoustic insulation's in, there'll be another layer of that acoustic green tape on the joists just to stop any more sound transmission through. And then as a final layer, there'll be acoustic plasterboard, which is an extra dense form of plasterboard, which is supposed to stop quite a lot of sound from getting through. So I've got all these different layers, and that should give me some pretty good sound insulation. Now, it won't be perfect. If you want to do it perfect, I have to spend a lot more money, have thicker walls, and also probably have to have a room within a room. But with this system, at least, it should make quite a difference and make it much better for sound insulation. It should be good enough for my purposes, especially as I tend to use microphones that are directional, so they don't pick up too much background noise anyway. And then what also helps with the insulation is we've got 600mm spacings between the joists. The less joists you have, the less space for transmission of sound, because the joists transmit the noise. So they're at 600mm to cut down on cost, but also to cut down on sound transmission. Now originally I was going to have this as a really unique kind of shed. I did start pricing this up a year ago, and I was going to have it as a green roof shed with green plants all over the outside as well. But when I calculated it all out, all the strength of the timber that I needed, because there was going to be a few tons of weight with the soil and any potential water, and then I also wanted to calculate the worst case scenario of about 3 foot or 1 meter of snow on top of that, because I need to calculate the worst case scenario. It was just too expensive when it came to wood, so I had to scale back quite a lot, but it is still a really solid structure. It shouldn't move at all with the wind. Now there's a few things that need to go on before the next layer of plywood. You need to put noggins in all the stud walls. They're basically braces. They go across like this here, and that will just brace it. I've already put a few on this end wall already, and that made it much stronger. That's just to brace the whole lot. I've also braced the corners as well. I wasn't originally going to brace the corners, but when I was working on the roof, because I didn't have the noggins in yet, it was a bit wobbly, so I did actually end up putting braces in all the corners just to make sure that it was stable enough for me to work on the roof. But once the noggins are all in and it's fully braced, this will be a really solid structure. And then what I'm also doing to keep down on the sound is I'm not going to have any windows. Windows are an obvious place that noise can get through. So one way to keep it soundproof is with the door. So I've actually gone and spent quite a bit of the budget on the door. It's not an acoustic door, but it is well sealed, so it shouldn't let too much noise through. It also has sound insulation and size, and this is one of the highest spec security doors you can get. I probably won't have much camera equipment in here, but I will be filming, and if there's a risk of a break-in, I want it to be extra secure. So I've gone for an extra secure type of door. This basically has 19 different bolts that pop out in all directions. The whole thing locks up. It's also got anti-drill technology. You know, you can cut the hinges off, you still can't get in. Basically it's pretty much impossible to get through this door. But the reason I went for a bought door instead of making my own door is it's so much stronger. It is a steel door with very high security, so there's loads of extra plate steel in there and anti-theft devices, so this is a really good solid door. But the other reason is it's got some really nice seals on it. You can see here we've got these seals here and seals there, so this is actually really quite nice and airtight, and that should help a lot with sound transmission. And again, there's no window in this at all, so this whole thing will seal nicely, give me security, and also be a very soundproof and airtight door. I've also gone for a few extra things like the lip on the bottom, just to help with the water, so the water will run off there nicely. So I'd also like to talk about the foundations a little bit on the shed. I don't think I showed you that in the first half of the video, it was just bare soil. So what I've done is I've gone around and I've used a whacking device to compact the whole ground around the area. The soil is fairly compact anyway, because it's always just been lawn, but I just compacted it down further, so it's a really solid base. I've then gone and done like a floating raft kind of foundation. So there's 10 slabs, 3x2 thick concrete slabs, which take the weight and distribute it evenly across the ground. There's then 100mm concrete block which sits on top of that to keep any moisture from getting underneath. I don't want this to get damp, so that's why this is raised up. The bottom one, as I say, is to spread the weight. The next one is to keep it up off the ground so it doesn't get damp. And then underneath, I don't know if it's visible, but I've also got some supports in there as well on the rafters underneath to stop any bounce. I did do the calculations online, there's online calculators, and it said it wasn't actually necessary for this span with this size of joist to have any extra support in the middle, but I just wanted to make sure it was extra secure, so there is something to support the joist in the middle. And then the whole bottom ground section is also covered with membrane. This is to stop any weeds that might be in the ground from growing up. I did dig over the whole site and remove any of the weeds, but just in case I didn't get every last one, you stop the plants coming up trying to push through this membrane underneath. And then the other reason for this is in case there's any foxes or any kind of burrowing animals that might want to dig under the shed, it should prevent that. And it will also help a little bit with dampness, stop any of the moisture coming up. So they're the main features of the shed so far. I'll probably do another update when the whole thing's watertight. Now, I don't have the budget to finish the whole shed this year. What I'll probably do is get the whole thing watertight. I can then use it for storage, for my compost and things like that. And then hopefully later in the year, when I get the budget, or maybe next year, I'm going to insulate the whole interior, plasterboard it, and then I can start using it as a film studio. And then I'll probably go into depth then with more about the microphones and maybe camera and lighting setups that I'll be going for inside this shed.